I first met Poleski my first day of middle school. He picked us up at our bus stop in a bus I was not expecting to see. And when we got on the bus, it was just this strange, poofy-haired man who looked like Einstein.
Well, I'd been driving the bus for quite a while, and I found Fuji, the Artosaurus, who rides on top of the bus. And eventually I just started adding things to him. I tied a little black scarf around his neck that blew in the breeze and all of that. And I thought, well, you know, it would just be more fun to have the cool bus.
He had a bunch of rules that he eventually laminated and made a list for. There was a little membership card that was attached to the list, and he gave it to everyone on the bus. There were a bunch of rules, some crazy stuff like no carnivorous ducks in the first 3 rows. You can't be in the basement of the bus while it's moving. Other than that, it was fine. He had a lot of different weird things around his bus that I'm 100% certain he made himself. Out to shake a tail in Neptune's hall. And he always had stories to tell, either about playing music, making art. I remember one time he showed us a couple of his pieces.
I'm completely self-taught, and I've always been fascinated by the way that you can depict a 3-dimensional scene on a 2-dimensional surface. So I had to do something that would support my artistic inclinations, and that's when I decided to drive the school bus. It just seemed perfect to me. I could drive the school bus, and I would have the middle of the day off to work in the studio. I would have summers off so I could work in the studio, and it was a job that I could just leave behind at night. It involved my body, but it didn't involve my brain. I only paint actually when I'm inspired by the muse. There's something that I need to express, and to try and do that for a living would be to try and force the muse to my needs. And for me, it seemed more worthwhile and legitimate to paint when I'm called upon or inspired by the muse to do so. But then I was, I have a body of work. I mean, I've been selling stuff all along, but I still have a body of work. And I happened to meet Tim and Michelle.
Well, obviously I didn't meet Poleski, but I heard of Poleski when Jack was in middle school.
Jack was on my bus for 2 years, and I didn't really get to know him all that well until the second year. And for some reason, we started having greater conversations, he and I. And the following year, I was transferred to another school, so I wasn't driving to Hamilton anymore. But the school that I was going to, the first pickup that I had in the morning, where I would wait before I started my route, was right across the street from where Jack caught his bus. And so he saw me over there, sitting there on my bus, and he came over and we would have conversations.
But after middle school, even after I had no way of actually talking to him, my dad just bumped into him at the grocery store. He was just like, yeah, I ran into Poleski today. I'm like, what? And he's like, he asked me how you were doing. It was just this really weird moment. He's like, yeah, he's following me or he sent me a friend request on Facebook.
Believe it or not, I'm not on Facebook, but my husband's on Facebook, and so he would always show me these pictures. He's like, oh my gosh, Poleski posted another painting. And so when you see artwork as great as his, you just think he must have a gallery. He must have some place that he's showing. Tim and I have lots of friends in the arts, and one of the things that is always really hard to take is you see all these artists who don't get the opportunity to show their work in galleries. So I walk past this gallery every day, and I've seen a couple of their shows, and I've gotten to know the owners, and I just one day thought, what a great space to show someone's work. So I went in and asked them, and they said, oh, we'd love to have you curate a show.
And Michelle approached me and asked me if I would be interested in having a show. And I thought, yeah, I guess so. Let's try and see what happens.
So he invited both Tim and I to come over. And of course, he had all this food and wine laid out for us. And we walked into his studio and I could see his beautiful paintings everywhere. That's the first thing I saw, the paintings. And then I saw a postcard on his desk that was like an invitation to a gallery opening. So clearly he had thought about having a gallery opening. He even had picked out the font that he wanted to use, the image that he wanted on the front of it. And so it gave me a little bit of hope that he was really excited about doing this. Yeah, as we looked around the house, I noticed that a lot of his work was hanging on their walls, and it had probably been hanging there for a really long time. So I was really concerned that he wasn't going to fully understand that having a gallery show meant you're probably going to sell some work and you don't get to keep them anymore.
So it was, I'd never seen all of his art in one place. I'd only seen a couple pieces. I was really excited to see kind of the things he had done.
I was really nervous, because one of the things about never having a show before and not selling my stuff except to people who had come into my studio and seen my work was that I was afraid it was going to be a flop.
I very slowly set them up around the gallery space. And then he just kind of looked around and I was like, okay, well, it's time for you to go now, because really what you don't want is to have the artist in the room deciding where the paintings are going to go. And, you might have to make decisions about this one isn't that great and maybe shouldn't be in the space. So I sent him away, which was really difficult, I think, for him.
And a collector that they had told about the show showed up and looked around the gallery and said, okay, I'll take that one and that one. And this person that I've never met before, it was completely amazing to me that somebody, would just walk in and buy two of my paintings just like that. People came from every corner of my personal history, friends that I haven't seen in years, friends that I hang out with all the time, former principals of schools that I've driven to, former students. Had a girl come up from San Francisco who used to be a first grader on my bus.
So from the time I asked Poleski to do the show to the time we opened the show, I really thought that he was going to paint more paintings. I thought that he would do more work, get excited about it. We gave him plenty of time, but he didn't. And so after he sold almost every painting at the opening, my fear was that that would be it, that he wouldn't paint anymore, that it was such a big success, but that was it, that maybe he was finished painting.
I didn't know what it was going to be like to not have those paintings anymore. And as it turns out, I've just since December, I guess, and here it is May, painted 7 new paintings, completely inspired by the fact that my walls are empty. The great American mythologist Joseph Campbell said, he used to tell his students at Sarah Lawrence, when they would ask him, how should I live my life? What should I do? I'm confused, and he would always counsel them. He'd say, follow your bliss. And it's the same thing. And to find what you're biochemically predisposed to is the way to do that is to notice that when you are the happiest and when you're the most content and when you're involved in something, it's like I always say, when you're doing the right thing, all of a sudden you've awakened from what it is you're engaged in, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you forgot to eat dinner, and you've completely lost yourself.
The thing about Poleski is his job may be a bus driver or was a bus driver, but being an artist is definitely who he has been since he was born. The fact that he was making art in obscurity is because he has to make art to survive. And for him, it isn't just painting paintings. It's sculptures, it's music, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's something else that he does that I don't even know about that's creative and artistic. This person is so talented, and it comes from so deep within him that it has to be a part of his everyday life, and so it will always be a part of his journey.
and Poleski.